I'm going to get started with a Cal question. On Friday, we had a couple guests join us, and this was prior to, obviously, the Friday game. And a question that we asked a couple different people is, hey, what are you seeing with Cal? He's in a slump. You know, what's working, what's not? Are you seeing some better ABs? And then he had 3 home runs in 3 games. And it's not that he suddenly turned on and was perfect, but you started seeing it pay off. Tell us a bit about what you saw from Cal specifically in this series.
Yeah, I think people were worried, right, coming off the All-Star break and the All-Star game and the Home Run Derby. He'd been asked to do a lot, obviously. What a moment for Cal and his family in the Derby, winning the Derby, kind of back in the Atlanta area where he's from. And it was really kind of his coming out party for America and for the baseball world to see. And so I think that was an obvious concern for the fan base, just, you know, how would Cal sort of handle the attention, but just sort of, you know, didn't really get that break either, right? And he's playing the most, daunting position in baseball as well, too. So I think there was an feeling of like, all right, is Cal slowing down? Is he hitting his slump? And he had about a 10-game stretch there where, you know, he did slow down a little bit, at least numbers-wise, right? The results weren't there. He hadn't hit a home run in 8 games, which for him does look like a bit of a slump. For the rest of the baseball world is pretty normal. But I think when you looked at some of the underlying data, the hard hit rates and the metrics showed that he's basically was doing what he'd done all year, just getting a little unlucky with some of his hard hits. I remember, a couple balls really, but one specifically, I think it was in the White Sox series last week, where it must have been, you know, a line drive that was foul by just maybe a foot or so right at the right field foul pole. So it felt like it was there, felt like it was coming. And then this weekend, obviously, it was Cal back to the first half Cal. And that was as big a home run as he's hit all year Friday night. That 8th inning, you know, down 2-0, 2 guys on to come through in that moment against a really good reliever from the Rays and Griffin Jacks. Just what a moment for this team to really propel them into the Ichiro weekend and to really start the sweep this weekend. And I was thinking about it. I mean, this had to have been, you know, the most exciting weekend the Mariners have had, not only in years, but in decades, really going back to maybe even 2001. Obviously, they had a special stretch there late in the 2022 season, highlighted by another Cal home run to really get them back to the postseason. But it just feels like everything's turning the Mariners' way right now. They've got the momentum. They've got the best lineup maybe in baseball right now. The pitching staff we're starting to see round into form. And if I'm the Mariner fan base here, I'm obviously feeling great about what they're not only doing right now, but what they can potentially do in October as well.
Hey, Adam, the athlete and coach in me is saying, yeah, you guys are doing good, but I want more. I got to keep seeing it to keep believing it. And what does more look like for them? Is it just Gino getting hot, or is there something else that you see?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, Gino coming in, such an incredible homecoming for him, and I've said it before, but, you know, he was only here for 2 years in 2022 and 2023, but it felt like so much longer, didn't it? It felt like he was here for like a decade, the way the city embraced him and just how genuine of a character he is and how much he meant to the clubhouse just in those 2 years. His bat will come around. He had just an all-time heater for the Diamondbacks in the first half of this season. He's 34 years old. You know, he's kind of regressing to the mean a little bit for what he's been historically in his career. That said, when you've got a lineup this deep, at some point he's going to run into another heater here. He's just too good. I think part of it, you know, coming back, hitting at T-Mobile Park, he had a couple really long flyouts on this homestand too. Maybe he goes to Baltimore or the Met Stadium this upcoming road trip, and those balls fly a little bit better on the East Coast in the humidity as well. But I'm not worried about Gino. He's going to be fine here over the next 6 weeks and potentially longer for the Mariners. To me, again, I keep circling back to the pitching staff. The bullpen has been really good. The rotation has been solid. We know how good they can be. We saw Brian Wu yesterday, another quality start, but he's a guy for me. If you're looking in, if you're peeking ahead to October, and again, it's a dangerous gamble here a little bit if we're already starting to peek ahead. But I think this team is that good and they're positioned to do it. But Brian Wu is probably your game one starter going into the playoffs at this point, and we know what he's capable of. And again, for him to not necessarily have his A stuff yesterday, still kind of grind through and get through 6 and lead the team to the sweep again, kind of tells you a lot about where he's at. But for me, I kind of keep coming back to Logan Gilbert and George Kirby. If they can kind of be 90% of what they've been the past few years, if they can stay healthy, this team just ratchets it up to a whole nother level, and they're fully capable of chasing down the Astros and not only winning the division, but kind of running away comfortably, I feel like, in September and really getting greedy. Now's the time to get greedy and chase down one of those top 2 spots in the American League, which really sets you up for home field advantage, really get you that bye in the wild card series weekend. And again, you can set up your pitching staff the way you want, then you get that bullpen, some rest. So again, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I think that's what they position themselves to do is get greedy, go after it, get one of those top 2 spots, and really try to position yourself for a run at the World Series.
Well, and sometimes getting ahead of yourself is a fun thing to do when you've got a team that's either a front runner or is really improving, and it's kind of fun to let yourself think like, well, how would this work with, this setup? I'm going to stick with pitching for my next question. It's just going to be a carryover of part of what you were already talking about. So I wanted to look at Logan and George in particular, because I agree with you. They're such an important part of that recipe. In fact, Adam, we had a texter who during the break said, oh my God, can you imagine this team if they had the 2024 pitching staff? And I thought they do. And obviously what this person was saying is if they were playing like that staff. So Adam, my question is, I've assumed through most of the year that, this was maybe not the best year for this staff because Logan was dealing with that elbow issue and, George had a late start and surely it'll iron itself out once they kind of get going. Do you see it as being, this is kind of things out of their control and they're just going to get into the swing of things? Or do you see it as like maybe a natural volatility to the position or that they're pitching a bit differently? Like, what are you seeing with these two in particular?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it's a little bit of everything, right? When you miss as much time as George Kirby and Logan Gilbert did in the first half of the season, it's just going to take you some time. It's just not that easy to come right back in and feel like, all right, I'm back to my normal self. That said, they've been really good. They haven't been, again, the ace-like form we've seen in the past from them. It's in there, and I would suspect if they're feeling good, the weather's hot, your arm's usually feeling a little bit better. They might be worn down a little bit this time of year, but you would have to think they're energized by just how good this team is. The energy in the clubhouse is at an all-time high. And George and Logan have been such a big part of this team the past few years. And, of course, they want to pitch in October. They want to pitch deep. If this team has a chance to get to the World Series, of course they want to be two of those main guys, and they're fully capable of it. And, frankly, I fully expect them to be right there and a big part of it as well. Looking at Logan Gilbert, the biggest change for him this year, beyond obviously just his first real injury of his career, he is striking out more than any starting pitcher in baseball this year. He's striking out batters at a higher rate than anybody in baseball this year among starters, higher than Tarek Skubal, higher than Zach Wheeler, all the top guys in baseball. And to me, that's been a bit of a change for him, right? In the past, he's been more of a contact guy. Yeah, he's been a really good strikeout pitcher, but not at this elite level. So it's a weird thing to say, but it's almost like he needs to strike out fewer guys. It would seem like a little bit of backwards thinking, but to me, he just needs to pitch to contact a little bit more, get some easy outs earlier in the game so he can get deeper in the game, right? That's what we saw from him a ton last year. He led all of baseball in innings pitched last year, and I think he wants to get back to that 6-inning, 7-inning guy that can get deep in games and give the bullpen a little bit of a break. He's been more of the 5-and-dive sort of guy here lately. And, again, I think a big part of it is just because he's striking out dudes, and it takes more pitches to strike out guys. Hitters are fouling off a lot of pitches on him. And so to me, it's like, hey, just throw a fastball on the outside corner. You're hoping for a ground out to J.P. Crawford, early in the games. And I think that'll help Logan Gilbert kind of settle in a little bit more and get deeper into games as well. And so to me, that, he's right there. It's just that guy that he was that true ace for the Mariners this year. He was the opening day starter for a reason. But I feel like if this team is going to make that huge run in September and chase down maybe even the top spot in the American League, I kind of circle back to Logan Gilbert as the guy, and I think he's pretty close.
Hey, we've been talking about just how down the AL is this year, and the Mariners need to take full advantage of this. But you know how this game goes, Adam. Man, a team gets hot, or maybe they're just slumping right now. Things aren't going for them. Is there a team other than the Astros that you see as like maybe the next biggest threat for these guys as the Mariners continue through the season?
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. To your point, like there's no one really scary in the American League right now. The Red Sox. They've got a bunch of young guys. Roman Anthony just signed that big contract, number one prospect in baseball. Now one of the just top hitters too. And so I think the Red Sox, they've got a bona fide ace in Garrett Crochet. What a great trade for them. They've been really hot here lately too in jockeying for position with the Mariners with that number one wild card spot. But again, I think both teams are getting greedy and should get greedy. I think the Blue Jays are there to be had in the AL East, and the Mariners are trying to track down the Astros in the AL West. I think the Blue Jays do have a really well-rounded team. They have a really good lineup, really good pitching, solid bullpen. I still think, in a lot of ways, the American League kind of probably has to go through Toronto. Detroit was the best American League team in the first half of the season. Again, they've got probably the best pitcher in baseball in Seattle U product, Tarek Skubal. So again, there's some really good teams. I don't know if there's any great team in the American League where you're going, we got to avoid them come October. And that's kind of the beauty of it for the Mariners. Maybe they end up being that team by the end of September going, we don't want to face that lineup or that pitching staff. And so, that's a great spot to be. Obviously, if you're the Mariners, it's sort of unfamiliar familiar territory if you're the Mariners too. And what a great feeling with the moves this front office made at the trade deadline to bring in, we haven't even mentioned Josh Naylor's name yet. In second half, Julio is coming alive. He's got an OPS over 1,000 over the last month. And so what a great problem to have if you're the Mariners, like too many good hitters, too many good players now with Luke Raley probably coming back in the next few days. What does that look like as the roster shakes out? And some roster moves out on the bench here too. I think the Mariners do have a tough decision or two to make here. Victor Robles potentially coming back by the end of the month, way earlier than I think a lot of us expected. So all signs are pointing up for the Mariners, and what a good feeling it has to be for those guys.
They're going to open up this road trip with a series against Baltimore, who's dropped 3 consecutive series, including one recently against the A's. You never want to look past a team, but I do want to, for the purposes of this road trip, look at all 3 opponents here, because then they're taking on the Mets and the Phillies. We know that both of those teams have a ton of slug, but have also at times run into trouble this year. What maybe is one particular thing you're watching for this team, or one thing you're tracking?
Yeah, just can they carry it over on the road, right? It's such a great homestand. Shoot, one of the best homestands they've ever had, 9-1, and just with Ichiro and just all the good vibes, all the positive energy and momentum. Can I now go on the East Coast? Pretty daunting. Again, it's the climate's going to be different. It's going to be humid. It's going to be hot. Can they keep this energy up when the crowd isn't behind them like they've been for the past 10 days? I think they can, but again, it's just different, right? When you're leading off a game, when you're not, don't have a chance to bat in the bottom of the ninth, it is a little bit of a disadvantage being on the road. And so you kind of want to try to score early. I know Dan Wilson manages games a little bit differently on the road. He might pull a starter a little bit earlier. You might get a little more aggressive. You might sack bunt in a different situation. And so, you want to try to put the pressure on the home team early. And so can they get that long ball going early like they did in the home stand? And again, Baltimore has really struggled this year. Their pitching hasn't been there in particular. So can they jump on these guys early, force them to get in the bullpen earlier in games and take care of business? You're just looking to win series when you get on the road, right? Can you take 2 or 3? And then you go into that Phillies series against one of the better teams in baseball. Certainly, I think the Phillies are right there as one of the favorites in the National League, maybe the favorite in the National League with the pitching staff that they have. And so I'll be joining the team in Philly next week. My first trip there to see the Mariners and Philly. So looking forward to that one. And to me, that's going to be a really good litmus test just to really see how good this lineup is, how deep this lineup is facing one of the best rotations in baseball.
Awesome. You enjoy that trip to Philly. We'll keep our eyes peeled on Seattle Times for your coverage. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.